It's a new day and opportunity is in the air. This is Philip with Soul Insights, and you are tuned into Good Morning Market, where small businesses are empowered to lead their market with the latest in market news, insights, and strategy. In today's episode, we are going to talk with personal branding and mindset clarity coach Victoria Baylor. We're going to talk with her about personal brand. Not just personal branding, more importantly, establishing your personal brand with your target audience so your business can reach its goals. So we're going to get to that interview in a little bit. Was really able to draw a lot of insights from Victoria and her experience working with business leaders and entrepreneurs, and what she's seen work and not work when it comes to personal branding and how important that is within the core of your corporate brand. Before we get into that, let's talk about the market roundup real quick for this week. So, coming from the market roundup, according to CBS, almost 3% of workers, or 4.3 million workers, handed in their resignation in August. By the way, more women are quitting than men. Also from Fox Business, the National Federation of Independent Businesses said Tuesday that its optimism index fell in September by 1 point to 99.1, the lowest since March. 5 of the 10 components declined, while just 3 improved. Also from Pew Research, some analysis on the recent census data. The U.S. household growth in the 20-teens was the lowest ever recorded, and we have data on that going back to the 1850s. Also from Yahoo News, nearly 80,000 containers are stacked up in the docks of the Savannah, Georgia port, and some ships are forced to wait at sea for more than 9 days. And finally, from NPR, Social Security's cost of living adjustment will see its biggest jump in decades. Social Security beneficiaries can expect a 5.9% boost for benefits in 2022. And that is your market roundup.
Y'all to none other than Victoria Baylor. I got Victoria Baylor in the house or on the video. And Victoria Baylor, if you don't know who she is a certified mindset and clarity coach. She's been a TEDx speaker. She's an Amazon best-selling author, and she is also the host of the Awakening Brilliance podcast, which I myself am a subscriber. Highly recommend you go find her wherever you get your podcast. The Awakening Brilliance podcast will not disappoint. What Victoria does is she helps entrepreneurs and business leaders gain brand clarity to increase their worth and their net worth. Victoria, how are you doing today?
Well, Philip, I'm delighted to be here. I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. I appreciate it.
Yes, and it's only appropriate that you were the first guest. You were part of the giving me the needed kick in the pants to get my voice out there and to start to put myself out there more. So it's an honor to have you on today.
Well, thank you very much. And it's an honor to be here and to hear what you have to say and to hear it from your perspective. So thank you again.
Yeah. And the cool thing about you is getting to work with you and following you on all your platforms. There's a lot of different layers where you help people. Like, I think there's a personal growth part to it. There's a professional growth to it. There's a corporate benefit to it. So there's a lot of layers. And what I asked you to talk with us today about is specifically the importance of personal branding in your career and your business. And then the second part is once you get that work done, which you so effectively help people do, how do you then get your target audience to receive that, right? Because if I come through this journey and this is my brand, you can't just end up with that and you just saying it and declaring it. If other people aren't talking about you, then it doesn't matter. But so, just to get people up to speed, maybe you could kind of give us your background on what makes Victoria start this company and, focusing on helping people understand what their superpowers are and establishing strong personal brands.
Oh, that is a big question. Let's see if I can sum that up very easily. Well, I think I've always been interested in people to some degree, and I've always loved to see people excel, even when I was younger. I've always kind of been a cheerleader with people, except probably through high school, which kind of sucked for a minute. But otherwise, that was to be personal development and growth, right? Um, but I didn't realize that I think I've been coaching since I was a young person. So it's for me, it's always been kind of a natural capability to kind of give advice and advise people and kind of come from a wisdom or like a wiser perspective based on things I've gleaned from other
Mhm.
people's lives and my perspective. But it didn't become a real career path until I kind of jumped through some other hoops. Earlier in life, I got into research science was my first chapter in life where I started. I think I've always been driven to understand things on a deeper level, which definitely is the reason I got into marine biology, which led to research science for 15 years. So that was where I believe I honed that analytical approach that I have that I use so readily in my coaching practice with people. I
Mhm.
believe development is key. So after I went through that phase and I knew that that chapter was turning, I actually got stuck. And it was there that I kind of had a little bit of an identity crisis. And I realized I had defined myself by this role I had prescribed to myself since I was 8 years old. I knew what I wanted to do. So I kind of got stuck there. And I little did I know that being stuck would just actually open the door to what I do for a living and actually create my divine calling. Long story short, to fast forward things, I realized that part of the reason I had gotten stuck is that I hadn't really surely developed my own identity apart from the work I was doing. I'd always created my identity around what I did, which is so problematic for so many people because they're misdefining themselves. So, and that means that you're missing out on the best part of yourself because you're only just kind of attaching that to things and stuff and doings. So once I did the detachment part, and because I do have a natural gift for being very analytical, I'd use my own skill set on myself and realize what my value was and what I brought to the market. And that's kind of what led me into I had already had a business at that time, kind of a creative business where I made custom gowns and things like that. But I knew that that was connected piece too without being confusing, because I made gowns and I made dresses and wedding gowns and prom gowns because I love for women to feel good about themselves. So I started to see kind of this pattern about me. It really wasn't even about the dress. I kind of like I like making them, but not that much. I really
Mhm.
like what happens here. So the more I kind of walk through my own path, and I'm a Christian, and my belief system is, kind of God directed me through that path. I got to the place where I realized that I really am concerned about what people see about themselves. And I noticed that just like myself, most people are missing out on their greatest worth, their greatest value, their greatest strengths. Most people actually go through life and don't know much about themselves. So I realized my calling was to help fix that problem from a very holistic approach and help people grow personally and in their brand so they actually can achieve their goals and desires a lot quicker in their business careers and in their life. So hopefully that sums it up.
No, it does, but it's I think it's such a it would seem like a paradox. So I'm sure a lot of the people who first get exposed to you or first work with you. I watched your TEDx talk, and you said very profoundly, but people don't really think about it. Is you are not what you do. Those two things are different questions and different answers. But so many times we go to a networking event or to a cocktail party, we don't even ask them who they are because we're like, okay, that's awkward. We ask them what they do, and if I know what you do, then I know who you are. But it's interesting. How much of a paradigm change is it for these clients that you work with when you tell them, you need to see yourself as more than what you do, and it will actually help you more in doing what you do. It's got to be interesting for them.
Oh my gosh, it's like a 180-degree turn. I just got off the with a client just about an hour ago, and just to be able to connect the dots from her childhood through some of the challenges she experienced to her current situation and the even the accolades she's getting now, she couldn't understand like what to tie that to. And we started looking at the core parts of who she is and how she's wired and where her strengths lie and all these other, like there's like at least 19 different parameters that I use kind of in my business, that once we start looking at those elements, it really started to dawn on her. She actually said out of her mouth, she said, I had no idea who I was as a person. Like I've always defined myself through the phases I've gone through in life, but I didn't know me. And now I actually can put words to that. I think that's very powerful because it's hard to in business or in your career to get people to buy into you when you don't know what you is, or you don't even know how to define you. What are you trying to get them to buy into? So you can't help people see the value you have to offer if you don't see it in yourself. So my job is to help put words to that and help people to see that, because once they have that, their confidence goes up. And then with confidence, which is a currency to make things happen, they can use that currency to buy into bigger goals, bigger dreams, bigger opportunities, and just keep rising up. And in doing so, it's not ever about us. It's about the value that we provide is impactful for everybody around. So it's definitely a win-win for us and the people that are impacted.
So I'm buying everything you're selling, and we talked about this as I had the privilege of being able to work with you as a client, and I came to realize I'm very introspective. I'm very much about self improvement, but not everybody is, right? Some people will hear some of this if they first get exposed to your material or others like you, and they're like, "Yeah, that self help stuff, that's cool." But I'm out here operating. I'm out here in the streets trying to make it happen. I'm not much into the self help stuff, and so to some of the skeptics or people who might just not get it at first hearing, why is a strong personal brand important for someone who owns a business or is a leader in business?
Very good question. Now, I'll kind of start that question by saying this. I think until we get to a place where we realize the things that we don't notice the most are oftentimes the most important, until we kind of get that inquisitiveness, then we're going to miss out on majority of life. If you think about it, not to make this kind of like natural perspective, but if you think about it, you actually have you have way more bacterial cells in your stomach than you actually have cells in your entire body. Who spends that much time thinking about that? Yet most of the processes that happen in your digestive system are really kind of predicated by that. So until we can start looking at what is the most important and foundational pieces of what I'm doing, then we miss the whole view of the entire process or the goals we're trying to achieve. Same thing happens in business. Until we can stop, we can. It's easy usually for us to see the bigger picture. Okay, I want to be, this corporate seat, or I want to be VP, or I want to own my business and go global. So that's easy. But you have to think about what are the building blocks that's going to make that happen. So we get really immersed in product service. Okay, that's what I need to kind of wave around. But what most people don't realize, your personal brand is actually your greatest asset. It's you. It's the most unique thing on this planet. There's no other person that's compiled the way you are. And to answer your question specifically, everyone already has a personal brand. And I
Oh,
don't think people think about that. Everybody has one. The question is, do you know what it is? And are you in control of it? So that's where the tide will start to turn. Your personal brand is nothing but your image and reputation. So everyone has one. And I think it behooves any professional or career person or a business owner to take that major device or tool that they have they can use to their advantage and be the one to steer that ship. Otherwise, if you do not define yourself for people, then people will define you naturally.
yeah.
And that's where I think the chasm between where people are and where they want to go can get wider if they don't realize they need to take control of that impressions they're making, the way they're defining themselves, the way everything they're putting out about themselves is creating a blowback effect.
Mhm.
So again, understanding that and being cognizant of that and being very active in steering that is what makes all the difference.
No, I think that part of what, when I was thinking about, what you've taught me in this topic is, in 2021, when we're speaking, both individuals and businesses, because of social media, we have so much opportunity to establish a strong brand or whatever we want that to be. But at the same time, if you're not putting in the proper work and you're not strategically thinking about this as a fundamental part of, what's important, then it also works on the other side. Everybody has a platform through social media and Google and the internet to define your brand for you. So if you're not stepping into that and you're not taking the reins on that, you will have a personal brand. But the question is, like you said, do you want it to be strongly influenced or and controlled by you, or you just want to let the wild west of the internet handle it for you? Because it will happen one way or the other, right?
Yeah, and it's really important to not cut yourself from under yourself. You know what I mean? Like you can make positive progressive steps forward in the way you project yourself, and then do something that really kind of knocks it all down that's negative. So it's just about really being consciously aware about everything that you're putting out about yourself, what you're saying about yourself, and making sure, most importantly, that you lead with value. Like, how do you really impact and influence people at the highest way possible? And then how do you get that information to the masses? Because being mediocre is not going to really help you set sail into the goals and desires you want. It's unless you're differentiating yourself, really standing out in the crowd and giving yourself those advantages and using every advantage you have to make that visibly visible to other people, then you're just really minimizing your effects. And I think I read somewhere that, I mean, we're inundated with about 30,000 messages a day. If you think about on Facebook, or if you're scrolling on your phone, you're literally being hit by like dozens, even within like a minute's time. So what are you putting out there that's actually going to stop someone from scrolling? Like, how are you going to get people's attention? So it's so important, like I said, with, oh, we have all these bacterial cells in our stomach. It's all the minutia details that's what builds to the bigger picture. Are you thinking about the words you're saying, the words you're using, the colors, the way in which you're looking, your expressiveness, your personality? There's so much that goes into building a personal brand and really relaying your authentic self to someone else. But most people get in the trap where they're inauthentic. I know I'm probably like, sorry, got on a whole nother soapbox, but I
I'm
figure
here for it.
there's a tug of war, because when people don't really know who they are and what they represent and where they provide the greatest value, they tend to want to mimic. And that's where they get into hot water, because you really can't, I can't be a Philip. It doesn't matter how I try to like do whatever. If I try to talk like him, I try to reason like him, I can't be another Philip. So people can detect inauthenticity, and they can't trust you when you're inauthentic. So my job is helping people not only get personally aligned within themselves and know what they bring to the table and own it confidently, but then also help them communicate that in a way that's powerful and impactful, where they don't have to substantiate or validate who they are. People just feel it. And that's another part, and I'll stop talking, I promise. The last part I think that's so important about personal branding is that a lot of it is subconscious. So we think we're still, this is why we have to be consciously aware, because we're impacting so many people subconsciously. Have you ever been around someone where you felt them and you felt their energy was so positive, and you're like, man, I really like this Philip guy. He just,
Yep.
he listened to what I said. That kind of, those impressions matter, and we need
Right.
to know how to create more of those impressions. Okay,
Right.
off my soapbox.
No, but that's I often describe those kind of people as they have like an infectious energy, right? Like it's palpable. You can kind of feel it, and you'll remember how they made you feel. Like they definitely stick out, right?
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about the importance in what people should be doing with personal branding. I wanted to first establish, what do you see most people doing, right? Because you talked a little bit about mimicking, or people just not really trying or being strategic about their personal branding. So what do you see most small business leaders, for example, doing or not doing when it comes to their personal brand?
Oh, I can make that simple. I see them doing too much. And when you're doing too much as far as activities, or I need to be here, or I need to show up in this way, or I need to show people I can do X, Y, and Z. No, actually the whole alphabet. And it's like, whew, that's 26 letters. This is a lot.
Mhm.
It dilutes people from being able to see what you do at the greatest level.
Mhm.
So one of the biggest challenges I find with most people, and it's because they're talented, it's not a nix or anything negative. It's just they lack focus. And because they don't know what to focus on, they're trying to be all things to all people, or they're trying to feel like they have to fill all the buckets up.
Yep.
And my encouragement for them is, and I think that's where working with me for sure, definitely depressurizes people, because it takes off this pressure of, oh, I have to show up in all these different, tuxedos and like dance, all these different numbers. And I'm like, nope, this is just what you wear. This is this is the way you perform. This is the way you come off. And when people know themselves and they feel comfortable about how they're being perceived and the way they perceive themselves first, I think self-worth is where it starts first. You understanding what you bring and then having that confidence to share it. It's so much easier to make your mark and transfer and connect to the right people when you're not trying to do everything at one time. So usually it's a lack of focus at first, primarily.
Right.
And then not using all their skill sets and their proper tools and their strengths, and diluting the value of those. I can't tell you, if I had $100 for every person that said, oh, I thought everybody could do what I do, I mean, I probably could go ahead and retire, because one thing about strength is when it comes so natural to you, you minimize it, but it doesn't make it any less than. It actually makes it greater when you start to look around and realize, like, oh, I can pick up a car. No one else can pick up a car. That's pretty fascinating. So just getting people comfortable at leveraging their gifts and strengths, and only following that path versus like 900 others.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense, especially like you said with small businesses, because what is the natural part of the small business struggle is we're trying to, find our way in this dog eat dog world, and you're trying to get customers, and you're trying to build a reputation. You're trying to get people to like you and want to do business with you. But in the process, like what you said, is we try to be all things to people, because every single thing that smells or even looks like it might be something where someone wants to do something with us, we will throw ourselves at that, sell ourselves short to get them to like us or to get them to give us a chance. And then we could be just becoming, doing something completely 180 from what, we should know we're capable of. So it sounds like we're just, it's like that kind of desperation and underestimating yourselves and letting people, I don't know, it isn't always letting people take advantage of you, but like, I've gone through this myself, and I see a lot of other businesses. It becomes this lack of focus because you're just chasing everything that looks like it might be opportunity and becoming whatever you need to be to make people happy.
Yeah, and at first, you're right. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, because at first you kind of have to, in a sense, when you're kind of finding your stride. But what I found to be more effective is when you're clear on yourself as an individual and what you bring to the market, it's easier to find avenues that are more than likely ones that will work for you. And it just narrows down your choices. Because when you really think about it, as a business owner, even in corporate, you only have so much energy. You only have so much capabilities. And it's easy to get into a mode of doing activities that you literally get steered off of activities that don't utilize any part of your strengths, capabilities, any of the tools you bring. And when I say strengths, I'm not just meaning just the things you're good at. There's so many other elements, which I include in my coaching, but just to name maybe one or two, like even your experiences, like how do you leverage that, or your education. There's so many different tools that most people don't realize they have in their toolbox. And I think when we realize that, oh, I have these elements, it's a lot easier to build what you need to build, which is that bridge to get from where you are to the next spot. And there's nothing greater in business than having focus. I think that's the first thing we all need to actually be able to be successful.
Right.
So.
No, it goes into the corporate thing too. Like, it's easy for us to look at like some of the biggest, most successful companies like an Amazon, and we see them like doing groceries, and now they sell clothes and everything. But how do they really establish themselves, in the market and create a name for themselves? It was the online books, right? You didn't have to go to Books A Million or whatnot. You could go find them, and they were, at the time, they were the kind of the price leader, because you didn't have to pay the brick and mortar retail costs to go to a bookstore. You could use the power of search engines and the internet to go find the book you wanted, to get it shipped to you in a reasonable amount of time. Although back then they didn't have Prime and 2-day shipping, but then you'd pay less than if you went to the physical bookstore, or, you had to be quiet because of the librarian, and so on, right? They were very, very laser focused, Jeff Bezos, about what they wanted to be. And then they could branch out and expand their horizons once they entrenched themselves.
Absolutely. And I think that's the only thing I'm asking people to do, whether in corporate and business, is get clear on your foundation. Just like you wouldn't build a house without thinking about the foundation. That's the strongest part. Again, you being your greatest asset, building off of yourself, and then learning what actually suits you best is the easiest avenue to kind of ensure success. Even if you mess up along the way, you're still going to be able to have that compass, which is yourself, to come back to and say, okay, well, this is where I'm wired. This is where I do best. And you can re-navigate.
So, a lot of your process, is that knowing who you are, knowing who you aren't, having that kind of self-image, that confidence, I would say almost like a piece about it. So now you know who you are, then you can develop your personal brand and strategy. Like, okay, this is what I'm going to be known for. This is where I shine. These are where my strengths are. That's a big part of what people can work with you on the one-on-one coaching, and you have a variety of other services where people can follow you and learn from you. But then comes the second part. And I think that, we talked about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. I've seen you use one of his quotes in a presentation that, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Right. And he's right. So, for example, I can say, well, I want to be known as innovative and informed and bold. That's my personal brand. But me simply declaring it, right, doesn't mean that that is my personal brand. It only is my personal brand if people are out there when I'm not around saying, you know what, Philip, that Philip guy, he's really informed or he's really bold. So what is what are some tips, if not the secret sauce on, okay, we know we want our personal brand to be, how do we make that become a reality because people are actually buying what we're trying to sell?
Now, the implementation part is the biggest part. You're absolutely right. It's one thing to have the identity, but how do you get that out to the masses? And we want to create shock waves. We don't want to just clap. We want shock wave. Obviously it starts with reverse engineering. So there's one thing to understand your identity, but the question is, what can you do with it at the highest level? In what way can you serve? And I think that's where, in business or corporate, the biggest thing is to think about what problem do you solve? So looking in your little toolbox, and that's the beauty of unpacking oneself, you actually can see what you're capable of. You can look at the tools you have and say, okay, what can I reasonably solve? And then what can I solve in such a unique way? Because you are unique, again, the greatest assets yourself, and do it in such a unique way that it's going to get attention. And I'm telling you, it's really not anything that's like a big secret about that. I mean, the way I just look at it is highly logical, actually. I mean, true enough, you can use a wrench to, hammer in a nail, I guess, but that's not what wrenches are for. Why not just grab a hammer? So it's really a logical approach to figuring out what problem do I want to solve, and then thinking beyond that and having the clarity of thought to think about what is your ultimate vision. Even if it changes, what is something that you have your eyes on, you have your eyes on sight of? What is that middle mark and what's the bullseye? And then kind of reverse engineer from there. If I want to be known as a prominent speaker, I do speak, or if I want to be known as something else, what are the steps that I can take that's actually going to get me there? And I think that's the challenge for people, because there is a certain amount of duration, grit, scratch it on up to the top that you have to do until you get to that place where it's like smooth sailing. It's like a plane taking off. Sometimes the plane takes off. There's a little bit of turbulence. It's trying to adjust the air and then it finally hits its altitude. Well, again, if you're clear on what those steps are, it's a lot easier to see where you're going to go, and then just to be mindful. Okay, if I want to be a very well-known speaker, well, I need to speak to people, or I need to speak with various organizations. What organization do I want to focus on? Then you want to think about, okay, what kind of speaker do I want to be known for? Is it, my humor, or is it my analytical abilities? Okay. How do I showcase that in the words I use, in the way I come across, in my tone of voice? Who do I need to collaborate with? So there's all these different steps to take. But again, by having the vision is the biggest part right there. And then making sure that you can substantiate that vision with the proper tools. Then it's just a matter of taking the proper steps to get and create and bring that vision to fruition.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm tracking. Okay, students asking the question of the teacher. So,
Sorry.
so I think I like the idea of reverse engineering. Okay, so I want to be known. I want to be known as, not I think I am. I want people to say that Philip is X, Y, and Z. So then you reverse engineer it, like you said. What are the activities I would need to do? What problems for them would I need to solve in order to leave that specific impression? And you basically, like you said, you start at the end, work all the way back to the beginning, where you can match, your self-perception and then create that perception outside of yourself. But you have to start from the end with your goal, and then you just work it back through the activities and what you need to be consistently doing. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And really, you're technically doing it. You just might have to start at a lower level. And the only thing happens is with every level, you're actually being able to be promoted to the next level. So if you want to be that person, go ahead and start acting that
Mhm.
rollout,
Mhm.
educating yourself, doing the various things that are necessary. And
Mhm.
it helps with coaching because it really helps to streamline the process. Because
Mhm.
I'm not going to lie, for you have like a 10-year goal or even a goal that's 2 years out, it can be pretty monumental if you're not, if you can't keep your eye on all the parameters of like your personal brand, or
Mhm.
because we all have blind spots.
Mhm.
So for the person that wants to be known for a certain thing, what if they have a challenge with interacting with people or
Mhm.
conflict resolution issues? You know, you can take, we don't want it to be a, your life to be like a game of snakes and is it shoots and ladders, snakes and ladders, where you actually make it up the ladder and then there's a snake and you're like, oh darn, you got to go, go way back. I used to play that with my kid. You really want it to be where you actually can get up the ladders
Yep.
and you can actually move up stages faster. And what I
Mhm.
found with my clients is that when you really can concentrate your value and get known for something. What
Mhm.
is that core thing you're known for? Because
Mhm.
when people talk about you, when the recommendations are going out, and when you really transform someone's life, you don't have to pay people to talk about it. They will scream it out for you.
Yeah.
What are the echoes that are happening regarding your name? And then the more that information gets known, it's naturally just going to start pushing you up in levels and people are going to give you opportunities. So I've witnessed my clients do that, move from 4 figures to 5 figures a month. I've seen them, you know, go on book tours and launch books and magazines and change their platforms. And it doesn't take forever. It just, the hardest work is the work I usually do with my client, which is concentrating their value and their worth so that they can actually spread that out.
So no, so that makes a whole lot of sense, and I think that's really cool for me, just in and of itself. Like I would want that just for its own worth, but for the more objective, quantitative people out there, maybe if you could explain, like, okay, if someone really takes their personal brand this seriously and they consistently work on it day in and day out, reverse engineering it, thinking with the end in mind, knowing their superpowers, knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are. Um, what is a when you work with a lot of clients, what is a objective, more like a quantitative result, the fruit that you would see in that? Like you mentioned, some of your clients, really boosting their income, and then what might be a more qualitative result of honing in on your personal brand? It could be like a lifestyle or a piece or something like that. What are some of the results you see when people really do this right way?
Oh wow. I mean, the results are, it's crazy because you know, most of my clients I've not met in person. I have few like in London right now. It's kind of hilarious. I've had clients in Belize, Costa Rica, you know, just all over the place. So it's not that, I can definitely say I'm not touching anybody physically.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
only exchanging words.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the power of shifting thought. And throughout those sessions, when you're talking about quantitative and qualitative results, it is uncanny how fast that just even having those conversations and having that clarity and moving those mindset blocks. I mean, I've had clients that couldn't, again, I take a holistic approach to coaching, but simple things from, obviously, well, not so simple, making way more money, in order of magnitude more, and monthly income, which is fantastic. Embarking on, I've had clients get elected to office, they're politicians, which is pretty cool. Say, you know, sometimes clients will come in not really believing in themselves, and then when you really pull out the assets that they have been ignoring, they realize that, oh, I can leverage this, and then they go on to political office. I've had professionals such as dentists and things like that I've worked with. So they obviously formulate and create their practices to be more reflective of the value that they want to provide their clients, and thus the reap the benefits from that. Their clients do, and then they kind of get known for certain type of care and value that they provide. So there's that part on the kind of the quantitative end. On the qualitative, that's the part I think is most important. Or at least that's the part I really live for. Because having someone that says they didn't believe in themselves, all of a sudden they can see themselves, they understand that they're unique. Having people that have dealt with maybe suicidal issues, or having people that have really just, I know that feeling because I was there, kind of in the gutter with like, why am I even here? just kind of figuring out, not really being able to make sense of their life and have so much clarity of thought. I had a client that would not sleep. She had a hard time just turning her mind off at night, constantly going, constantly going. Now she gets a full night rest. She's like, Victoria, I know what I need to focus on. And thank you so much. I like found my life again. I've worked with moms that have, I mean, these are some tough chicks. Like they do a lot and they have multiple careers. And one, I think, got up and testified after my bilocal talk. And just having those women say, hey, I regained a sense of me again. Like, I know who I am now. I'd like lost myself. To me, that's what's most important, because I don't believe God's put us on this earth to ever feel purposeless, to ever feel like we don't come with anything, to ever be confused. I always tell people that the fact that you have a fingerprint, there's like, first of all, there's millions and millions and millions and billions of people that have ever walked on the earth. But the fact that there are 7 billion people roughly on the earth right now, and no one else has your mark. I always ask people, I was like, would God even waste his time giving you a unique mark if that wasn't just the scratch of the surface of what you possibly possess as unique? That's like the exterior indicator. So, but I also know that, and this is probably what's not taught in school, definitely wasn't taught to me, but it should be encouraged more for people to look internally to really get a sense of who they are, because all we're taught maybe from school and other things is to do good deeds, get the validation. I know I was one of those straight A students that, and thankfully I didn't have parents that I had to do that for anybody else. I did it just for me. But there's a certain pat on the head you get for everything that you do externally. And you want to kind of start defining yourself by those things. And there's great danger in that. So to really get that quantitative and qualitative like uptick, it's so important to start with the most important person, yourself, and to look where we least are likely to look, which is everything amazing about you is packed inside. How do we unpack that? And then you actually use that moving forward.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway for y'all, I think what Victoria is trying to tell us is that you are amazing, and you're not a robot. You're a person, which means that you've got unique things that you bring to the table. And if we can really truly harness that, perhaps with the assistance of a mindset and a personal branding coach, then your personal brand could truly be powerful, because before you get people to see it, you really got to see it and believe it yourself before you can push it out to the masses through your marketing or through your business or whatever it may be, right?
Oh, absolutely. That was a great summation. It really is. And it's not a hype people up kind of thing. I'm a very logical, grounded person.
Mm-hmm.
I love to give people compliments and say nice things, but I believe in the technicality of it. And just like I said, it's really weird when I worked in research science, because I literally thought every day, I was like, my God, we get up every day to think about stuff most people aren't even thinking about. I remember we had some treks in like Alaska. We were studying bacterial populations changing because of global climate change. How many people think about, food cycles and other cycles in the ocean and how that plays into weather? And like, no one wakes up and just thinks about that. So there's so much about our world and even our internal world that we're not thinking about, that we're blocked off from, because we're so focused on things that really aren't giving us the results we need. Feel like if we go to more networking events, we're going to make that connection, that magic connection, and make it happen. That's not it. If I offer more products and service, that's not it either. It really is up to you and bringing out the best in you, and then laying that on the table and adding your magic to that. That's where it starts.
Yes. So, I mean, for my audience, I can say firsthand that, like I said, Victoria, she just said it. This is not some kind of hype. She's not trying to give you the feels. And there's a lot of that has been going around in our society where, it's all about creating some kind of image of yourself. What she's all about is she's into what's been proven for all of human history, is that she's trying to help you understand who you truly are, what is so awesome about that, and how that you can leverage that for a greater good, and therefore experience more fruit and blessing and prosperity more worth in your professional life and in your personal life. So it's an honor to be able to work with a person like Victoria, to call her a friend, to call her a mentor. And Victoria, I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience and your wisdom and your principles with the audience. And I don't want this to be the end of how people get to hear from you. So what's the best way for people to get in touch and stay connected with Victoria Baylor?
Oh, well, that's easy. I'm self-branded. So just go to www.victoriabaylor.com to start. You'll find all my respective hubs there. I'm on social media, a little bit all over the place. And don't be a stranger. Please stop in and say, hey. I think sometimes the misconception is people think when you kind of are in the personal branding space that the minute you look at them like you're judging them. It's like, I'm not even paying attention to people. I'm over here trying to keep my own personal brand together and just tap my own gold and keep it going. So please reach out. Would love to have a conversation. If you want to book a clarity and mindset call, you'll see the buttons there to do that. But yeah, I'm out there, and I love to connect with people.
Yep. Check Victoria out. Check her out and follow her on social media, on the podcast. She does one-on-one coaching. She also does public speaking. So it would behoove you and your personal brand to get to know Victoria Baylor some more. Victoria, thank you so much for your time today, and it was an honor.
Oh my gosh. Well, likewise. Thank you so much. And thank you for wanting to bring such amazing nuggets to your audience. I know they're going to be excited, especially they get to hear your spin on things. So thank you for having me as a guest. I really appreciate that.
Hey, well, you're part of the reason we're here today. So that's awesome. Y'all have a great day.
Well, that concludes today's episode. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you found today's information helpful, if you could check us out and rate Good Morning Market on wherever you're getting your podcast from. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Leave a review, leave ratings. I read every single one of those. I'm looking to every episode make the Good Morning Market program more valuable for you, so you can be more effective at what you do. You can find me at Philip 2Ls at soulinsights.com. Reach out to me if you want to connect or get more information, or if you know someone who might be a good fit for the podcast as a guest, for example. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Check out the company website, soulinsights.com. But in the meantime, everybody have a great day. It's a great new opportunity and a new day to grow business. Let's get out there and do it.